How did a failed painter from Austria become the architect of genocide, the face of fascism, and the man who set the entire world on fire? This is the story of how Adolf Hitler plunged the world into chaos, slaughtered millions, and carved his name into the darkest chapters of human history.
Wenn ich euch so sehe, dann wird es mir schwer zu sprechen.
Adolf Hitler was born in 1889 in Braunau am Inn, a quiet Austrian town near the German border. He was a son of a domineering Austrian customs officer and a quiet, affectionate mother. Like many boys, he loved tales of German heroism and empire. But unlike most, young Adolf clung to those fantasies with fanatical intensity. Even as a child, he was restless, prone to grand dreams and violent tempers. But nothing about him, not yet, suggested a dictator in the making. He dreamed of being an artist. He applied to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts twice and was rejected both times. They said his work lacked talent. Rejection shattered his dream, but it didn't break his ego. It was in Vienna that the seeds of hatred took root. Homeless, bitter, and broke, Hitler wandered a city bubbling with anti-Semitism, German nationalism, and rising extremism, ideas that would later become weapons in his hands. When War I broke out in 1914, Hitler volunteered for the German army. He finally found what he lacked: structure, purpose, and identity. He served bravely on the front lines and earned medals for his courage. But when Germany lost the war, Hitler didn't blame the generals or the numbers. He blamed the Jews. The Treaty of Versailles humiliated the German people, and to Hitler, it confirmed everything he feared, that Germany had been stabbed in the back by traitors. The Treaty of Versailles became his personal betrayal, a wound he would nurse for years, until it bled into a manifesto. After the war, Hitler remained in the army as an informant. That's how he first encountered the German Workers' Party, a small nationalist group. He joined as member number 55. Within a year, he was its leader. He renamed it the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazi Party, and made it his own. His speeches were fire, wild, trembling sermons that promised strength, purity, and revenge. In the beer halls of Munich, he was no longer a failed painter. He was a savior, or rather, a dictator in the making. In 1923, he attempted to seize power through the beer hall putsch. It failed. He was arrested and sentenced to 5 years in prison, but served just 9 months. In that cell, he wrote Mein Kampf, My Struggle, a twisted manifesto of hateful ideology, racial purity, and expansionist dreams. The 1930s were Germany's breaking point. Starvation, mass unemployment, and political paralysis crushed the spirit of its people. Hitler offered simple answers to complex pain, blamed the Jews, the communists, and the weak Weimar Republic. By 1932, Hitler was running for president. He lost, but the Nazi Party became the largest party in the Reichstag, the German parliament, with 37% of the vote. Although Hitler lost the presidency to Hindenburg, conservative elites thought they could control him, so they made him Chancellor of Germany in January 1933. A month later, the Reichstag building was set on fire. Hitler blamed the communists and convinced President Hindenburg to issue the Reichstag Fire decree, suspending key civil liberties such as freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and the right to assembly. Thousands of opponents were arrested and jailed. In March 1933, Hitler pushed through the Enabling Act, which gave him the power to make laws without the parliament for 4 years. This effectively destroyed democracy. With it, Hitler banned all political parties, dissolved trade unions, and made Germany a one-party Nazi state. When President Hindenburg died in August 1934, Hitler merged the presidency and chancellorship, declaring himself Führer, leader of the German Reich. The army swore personal loyalty to him, not to the Constitution. From then on, Hitler ruled Germany as a dictator, The SS and Gestapo silenced dissent. Propaganda controlled the media, schools, and culture. The youth were indoctrinated through Hitler Youth and education reform. His racial theories became genocide. 6 million Jews, millions of Roma, Slavs, disabled people, and political opponents were tortured, starved, and executed. He called it the final solution. It was history's most industrialized slaughter. Meanwhile, he rearmed Germany, rebuilt national pride, and began expanding its territory. In 1938, Austria was annexed, then the Sudetenland, then the rest of Czechoslovakia. By 1939, he had built a war machine. As Führer of Nazi Germany, Hitler started and led Germany through World War II, the deadliest war in human history. When he invaded Poland, Britain and France declared war. In just months, Hitler's forces conquered much of Europe. The war Hitler wanted became a war he couldn't control. Blitzkrieg swept across Europe. France fell, but Britain resisted. Then he turned east, invading the Soviet Union in 1941. It was a fatal and ultimately catastrophic decision he ever made. Nearly the entire German army was decimated. This marked the beginning of Nazi Germany's collapse. By early 1945, Hitler was a ghost of the man who once roused millions. Surrounded by rubble, betrayed by allies, and facing inevitable defeat. On April 30th, 1945, Adolf Hitler retreated into his Berlin bunker and shot himself in the head. His regime had lasted just 12 years, and over 70 million people were killed. Hitler rose to dictatorship not by sudden coup, but by exploiting crisis, manipulating democracy, silencing enemies, and gradually gaining total legal and ideological control over Germany. But in the end, it was his hatred, ego, and delusions of superiority that led him to overreach, make catastrophic decisions, and ultimately engineer his own downfall.